I recognize myself to ask some questions here. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. To address our nation's housing needs crisis, we need a bipartisan commitment to take on our nation's housing needs head first, not just nibble around the edges on them. I am deeply concerned about comments my Republican colleagues on this committee have made about housing investments, namely that housing doesn't constitute, quote, real infrastructure, since infrastructure only means, quote, things like roads, bridges, ports, airports, and transit. Housing is essential infrastructure. I agree with Secretary Fudge, who told this committee several weeks ago that housing, quote, lays the foundation for a stronger and more connected society. So I want to talk a little about the state of our nation's housing. And I want to start out with public housing here. Ms. Roman, is our nation's public housing in good shape, or do we have a long list of repairs that have been outstanding for years?
Our public housing is not in good shape, and we do have a long list of repairs that have been outstanding for many years. And we are losing, as a result, public housing units every year, I think at the pace of about 10,000 a year to demolition or disposition. And we've lost, I think, more than 200,000 units since the 90s. So yes, that infrastructure is in need of.
So think about that. We're talking about our public housing and the fact that we don't spend enough money on just plain old maintenance and repairs. Means we're losing about 10,000 units a year, about 200,000 units that we can count so far, units that families need to be able to live in. This means that families are living in unsafe, unhealthy, and undignified conditions. We need more than $70 billion just to make public housing safe for the residents who are there. And we're not even talking about the investments we need to make to upgrade public housing to withstand the impact of climate change or to incorporate energy-efficient upgrades. This is just to maintain the level of where we are now, to have this critical source of housing available to us. So even if we zoom out, the situation on housing isn't much better. Ms. Mensah, is the nation's housing stock overall in sound condition?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. It is not in sound condition. We must be better stewards of this. A policy map and Federal Reserve study showed that there were actually $127 billion of repairs. And when I served as Undersecretary of Rural Development, we identified $6 billion in the nation's rural rental properties. Stewardship matters, and the CDFIs that I represent stand ready to be your partners in this effort. We can create loans for homeowners who want to do this. We can work with properties. We're the ones who want to do this kind of rehab. And today, it will be more energy efficient. We will rebuild greener when we repair. And there's no reason to not be good stewards of what is already here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And, I very much appreciate your point, but I really want to underscore what this means. When we don't maintain, what kind of things are we talking about? We're talking about pest infestations, plumbing that doesn't work, structural problems, electrical problems, can be very dangerous, heating problems, leaks, and as you say, we're looking at about $127 billion worth of repairs just to be able to maintain where we are. So, Ms. Roman, if a low-income family living in a crumbling house wants to move to safe housing that is free of mold, free of pest infestation, doesn't have lead pipes, can they generally find someplace affordable to move?
No, because there's not an adequate supply of affordable housing, and places they will be looking at that they can afford will probably be, as you described, the place they're trying to leave.
Yeah. And, that's the real problem here. We are disinvesting in the affordable housing that exists, losing units year after year. We're not making investments to produce enough new affordable housing. And while Congress twiddles our thumbs, we put families at risk. We put their health at risk. President Biden recognized the urgency of this need when he included historic investments in housing in his infrastructure proposal. And I've said all along, frankly, we need to make bigger investments in housing. But instead, some in Congress are saying that we can kick housing out of the infrastructure package altogether in hopes that Republicans will agree somehow then to vote for the package. Or that Democrats can go it alone, but only if we spend less than President Biden proposed in his American Jobs Plan and American Families Plan. This is unacceptable. We need to be going further than the president has proposed, not settling for half as much and then patting ourselves on the back for a job well done. Families across this country understand the stakes. It is time that Congress catches up with the needs that our families have in housing and that we finally make the investments necessary to turn this crisis around. Again, I want to thank you very much for being here today and thank you for your work.
Thank you, Senator
Mr.
Warren.
Chairman.
Thank you. Before turning